Welcome to my first vinyl tag, but this is not just any old vinyl tag. You see, I want to get to know you, but I want to get to know you through the music you love, through the records you collect. So I have 6 vinyl related questions specifically designed to get to know you, to discover your personality. So you can leave your answers in the comments, make a YouTube video yourself, or I have a short linked at the end of the video where you could use the audio to share your responses. Number 1, what is a record you associate with a good memory? So for this one, I have Man to Man by Hot Chocolate. So the story behind this record is they are a British soul band that was popular in the 70s. But the reason I know about them is their song on this album, Heaven is in the Backseat of My Cadillac. My first car was a 1993 Cadillac that I bought at a thrift store, used. Obviously, it had a lot of issues, but at the same time, it was a fun car. And part of the thing about Cadillacs is there are a lot of rap songs about Cadillacs, so I immediately made a playlist of every song about a Cadillac that I could find, and that's how I discovered Heaven's in the Backseat of My Cadillac by Hot Chocolate. I fell in love with the song, and then years later, when I got my first vinyl player, I was at a record store browsing the used records and I found this and I was freaking out. I was probably the only person freaking out about finding Hot Chocolate. But yeah, this is just an overall really funky, soulful album. It's a lot of fun. I associate it with having my first car. Number 2, what is a record that got you through a hard time? And for this one, it's right here. Care for Me by Saba. This record came out about a year after I graduated from college, and I was struggling to find full-time work and really figure out what I was going to do as an adult. And I was working at Starbucks at the time. I'm not a morning person at all, but I had to get up at like 5 a.m. And whenever this record came out, I listened to it all the time. And it was my go-to record to turn on for those 5 a.m. drives to the morning shift at Starbucks. And this album still has a lot of my favorite rap songs on it. Life is a big one. Heaven's All Around Me, Busy, Sirens. I love everything about this record, and it was my favorite record at one of the most confusing, difficult times of my life where I was figuring a lot of stuff out. This album was here. Number 3, what is the best record you received as a gift? And this was a really fun answer. It is the Lego Batman soundtrack. So this was given to me by one of my best friends, Alan, and we bonded over our mutual love for the Lego Batman movie a lot. I think it's the best adaptation of Batman ever on film, over the Nolan movies even. And it's just so damn funny. Me and my friend bond over our love for this movie. Shortly after it came out, we were living together and watching it on DVD all the time. And the soundtrack is low-key stacked. You get all of the fun Batman songs that are in the movie. You get 2 different renditions of Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. One is The Loneliest Number is also on this. Another fun thing about this, I didn't know until I got the record, but one of the credited songwriters on here is a guy named Hovey Benjamin, who has a bunch of hilarious rap songs on YouTube that me and my friend also enjoyed watching together. And I had no idea until I saw the liner notes to this that he even worked on this album. But the final thing that really brings it full circle is this includes the song Friends or Family, the end credits song for the movie, a whole song just all about friendships. So really brings everything together. Perfect gift from a friend. Thanks, Alan. And here's the rest of my vinyl collection. I've very clearly grown out of my current setup and need something new. This was recently on a video on Kelsey Herzog's channel about vinyl setups, and low-key, I felt like I got a little roasted.
It's a very nice setup, but it's also so chaotic.
So send me shelf recommendations, please. Well, number 4 is, what is a record that meant more to you in a specific time of your life? I'm gonna go with Coloring Book by Chance the Rapper. So this is one of Chance's biggest projects, and the first one where he embraced gospel music, and that's actually why it meant so much to me at that time of my life. See, I'm from the South, from the Bible Belt, and I was raised very religious, but at the time this album came out, I was really like wrestling with my own religion and trying to figure out if the faith I was brought up in was really the faith that I actually believed in. And The joy on this album, just how happy Chance sounded after recently converting back to faith, it had me holding on to faith a little bit longer. This album to me just kind of represents the best of what faith can be. At a time where I was losing faith entirely, this kept me holding on. But what's funny is another record came out that kind of countered the effects of this album, and that was actually Kendrick Lamar's Damn. This album is about the blessings of God, and Damn is an album all about his judgment. I remember specifically, someone else made that observation. A writer for DJ Booth wrote an entire article about how Damn and Coloring Book represented opposite sides of the faith coin, and it was so on the nose, Kendrick Lamar himself actually wrote in and responded to the article, basically saying it was spot on and like no one else was catching what this writer caught. And I think the reason why I don't like Damn as much as most people do is kind of it represents the negatives of faith. A lot of the stuff Kendrick is talking about, or like that outro on Fear, it reminds me a lot of some of the stuff I grew up in. Of course, Kendrick talks specifically about Black Israelites, and that wasn't the church I grew up in at all, obviously, but there are actually a whole lot of similarities between how Kendrick and how the church I went to growing up viewed judgment and God executing his wrath on the earth and cursing the earth after the fall. And it was kind of eye-opening to watch a record about that be released on such a big scale, and people that didn't grow up just surrounded by that mentality all the time reacted to it for the first time, and their reactions were pretty eye-opening and had me questioning a lot. So in the end, my faith has changed a whole lot, is very different from what I grew up in, but Coloring Book, while it still represents an era for me, I still think this album slaps. When I got this on vinyl, I re-listened to it, and I'm still in love with it. And low-key, Finish Line Drown is, I think, the best song of this album. Number 5, what is a record that made you cry? And this one is a recent one. It is Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. I talked about this in my top albums of 2023. I almost cried while recording that video. It's a whole album dedicated to Sufjan Stevens' partner who passed away. And Sufjan is really just so capable as a writer. He communicates the grief in such a potent way. I don't think I've ever heard an entire album's worth of music about loss that is cut so deep as this one did. When the first single, Will Anybody Ever Love Me, came out, I thought it was just a breakup song, and it was heart-wrenching just as a breakup song. But then when what it was actually about came out, like it took on this whole new meaning. And while so many of the lyrics to this are so gut-wrenching and sad, the instrumentation is so beautiful, and particularly these moments where there's this grand orchestration and these giant crescendos and additional voices are coming in. It's such a beautiful experience. It makes you feel like you're less alone if you're also feeling loss. And somehow the combination of both those things, of the darkness and the beauty of life together, just kind of are really emotionally overwhelming. And I talk about it in more detail in my top albums of last year video, but yeah, this is a favorite record of mine, and it did make me cry. And finally, number 6, what is a record that makes you laugh? And I have a really fun answer for this one. This is by H. Jon Benjamin. It is called Well I Should Have, Learned How to Play Piano. There is a backstory to this record. This is a jazz album, and one of the common things people say about jazz is it's all just improvisation. It's just people banging random notes. Really, anyone could play jazz if they really wanted to. And this album puts that to the test. So H. Jon Benjamin, you may know, is not a musician. He is an actor. He is the voice of Bob in Bob's Burgers. He's the voice of Archer in Archer, but he has assembled a group of some world-class jazz musicians. So it's all these professional musicians and Jon Benjamin who is playing the piano. The catch is, H. Jon Benjamin does not know how to play the piano. So you get just normal sounding good jazz music, and then it's time for a piano solo, and it's just H. Jon Benjamin banging random notes. He's hitting the wrong notes. He never quite finds a groove or anything. I really can't explain it enough. You just kind of have to listen to it, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And it's a great album to show friends. It's a great album to put in the background of a party or a gathering because it sounds like normal music, and then the piano parts come in and you just see people start to turn their heads like, what's going on? What the hell is that? But again, I can't explain it enough to do justice. If you want a good laugh, just listen to the album. There is also a short mini doc about the creation of this album on YouTube, but H. Jon Benjamin, one of the funniest people, and this is some of the funniest music I've ever heard. And that's it for my first vinyl tag to get to know you. Hopefully you've got to know me, but I still want to get to know you. So leave a comment with your answers to these questions, or these are designed to provoke conversation, to get really in-depth. So if you make a full YouTube video answering these questions, let me know in the comments and I will watch it. I've also made a short version of this final tag, so if you want to use the short audio, you can make your own short answering these prompts. So that is linked below. Hopefully it's also on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. All you vinyl lovers, you could follow me at Robert2_Isaac everywhere. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.